feel like I'm performing at the Catskills. We've got the buffet happening back there and nobody's listening. So I will try to be loud and annoying. Let's see. All right, awkward now. A few hastily scribbled notes. Awkward now, I have a subtitle, or the future, I feel like you should be going into a little room with a person with a turban on their head, and they will read your palm. I have no idea what the future is going to bring. The great thing about being a creative professional, as many of us in this room are, is that we don't have to worry about what the future is. We think about it, then we actually do that thing. So we think of something new, we do it, and then that actually becomes the future. That seems to me way more important than trying to imagine what new gadget Google will think of. That's actually not what I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about the awkward. It's really, instead of talking about a future projection, it's kind of reading the tea leaves of where we are right now. There's strange trajectories that happen through contemporary culture. Eventually, and probably last of all, they end up in architecture. I think the awkward is one of them. It's been the subject of many scholarly essays, such as this one that I wrote for a journal at Yale. But it goes back to, I've been spending a lot of time in 1979, which as an architectural scene was completely uninteresting. It turns out though, it was also the birth of the awkward. It was, for those of you who remember, the moment of post-punk, which for Iggy Pop was already his second life. And so the idiot, the idea of the awkward position became suddenly apolitical politics. I think it's only now finding its way into architecture. So, what happened in 1979 in music then eventually happens in 2001, 2002 in comedy. And comedy is a person I had a discussion with once who was an editor at the New Yorker. Comedy is the kind of dog whistle. It's the field that hears a sound that's going to go through contemporary culture before anyone else understands it. So we have that. We have Robert Longo going back to 1979. It defined a certain moment, and then, 10 or 12 years later, Elaine Bennis, who would have thought that it was funny? There's been scientific studies devoted to the awkward. This is, I think, a study done at MIT or Harvard, I forgot, but they spent a lot of money figuring out where the awkward is compared to traditional authenticity. There's been a book of philosophy written on the subject of the awkward. Chapters include Curb Your Enthusiasm, for instance. And then what I thought was really interesting was, the awkward suddenly erupting within contemporary space where you least expect it. And on one hand, you don't want this to happen. And on the other hand, and I really get this from noted futurist Jeffrey Kipnis, the awkward suddenly has its own kind of prescient grace. And so what I imagined was, in fact, models falling down is, on one hand, an accident. On the other hand, and this is from one of McQueen's last shows before his death, these shoes, it seems like they were not so much in aesthetics of form as much as they were in aesthetics of what happens to people wearing them. And so I just wanted to propose a kind of fashion show of the future in which the whole thing is about the aesthetics of exactly what happens when you fall down. And in fact, in contemporary academic research, this is work that's going on, in-depth research that's going on at SciArc. This is actually funded by Lexus. We have collaborating time. This is a recent thesis project. This is a recent project that was, again, by noted futurist Jeffrey Kipnis at the Venice Biennale. This is a recent project in our own office. And then, in conclusion, thank you.